Welcome to the TheForge tutorials Maya masterclass. In this video, we're going to discuss the different selection methods and how to work with symmetry. You can access your selection modes from your marquee menu. So just select your object and right click on it. Now you have access to your selection modes. You can select your object by edges, by vertexes, by vertex faces, by faces. But the main three components that we use in modeling is your edges, vertexes and faces. So for now, let's go into the edge mode. Now to select a component, you just need to left click on it and you will select that component just like we did right now. And if you want to add another edge to that selection, you just press your shift button. That will make that plus icon appear alongside your mouse. That means you can now add another selection to your selection. So now let's select another edge. Now you can see we have selected multiple edges and you can add as many edges as you want like this. Now if you want to select, for example, edges from here to here, you don't need to select them individually. You can just select your initial selection and double click on your last selection. That will select all the edges that you have in between. Or if you want to select the complete edge loop, which is this continuous line that revolves around the object, you just need to double click on this line and that will select the complete edge loop. You can do that to the row as well. Just select this edge and select the edge below it and double click on it, and that will select the complete row. You can use these same selection methods in your other component modes also. You can go to your faces and select the faces by the same principle. Select multiple faces by clicking on your initial face and double clicking on the end face, or select the whole edge loop by selecting a face and double clicking on the adjacent face. That will select the whole edge loop. And the same thing goes for the vertexes as well. You can select a vertex and double click on the adjacent vertex to select the whole edge loop. So these are your basic methods of selection. Now there's another thing you can do with your selection, that is grow or shrink your selection. So let's go back to our face mode so we can see it better and select a single face. Now as you can see, we have selected just a single face. Now if you want to select every face that is surrounding that face, you don't need to select it manually. You just need to press shift and your greater than key. That will grow your selection and every component that is surrounding our face will be selected. We can grow it even further by pressing shift plus greater than key again, or you can shrink the selection by pressing shift plus your less than key. You can do the same thing again with your edges and vertexes. So for example, let's go back to the vertexes and select a single vertex and press shift plus greater than key. You can see our selection is growing, but for better visibility, let's go to our orthographic view. You can see that our selection has grown. Now let's shrink the selection. You can see that our selection is now shrinking. Let's go back to our perspective view. Now I want to show you another thing that my students have trouble selecting. So let's go to our object mode. And let's create a cylinder. Let's make it a little larger. And let's give it a little bit more resolution. So when you have an intersection like this, it's really hard to select all of these faces easily. You cannot select it as an edge loop because it's not continuous. So there are a few methods by which you can make this kind of selection. You can simply drag and select, but that has a problem that it will select every face that is behind your selection. Then you'll have to deselect it by control dragging your mouse, and then you'll have your selection available to you. Or you can select it manually by adding face to face. But there is an easier method. Now to select these kind of faces easily, you need to go to your vertex mode. Now in the vertex mode, select the center vertex, press the control key plus your right mouse button and go to two faces and select two faces from here. This will select every face that is surrounding your vertex. And from here you can grow or shrink your selection as you desire. And maybe you know this method already, but I have seen quite a few students making selection manually, but this is a more faster, more accurate and ultimately an easier way to achieve that task. So let's delete that and let's go back to our camera view. So now that we know multiple ways to select the components of our object, now let's talk about symmetry. So there are two ways you can access symmetry. You can either access symmetry from up here, this menu. You can access the object symmetry and world symmetry, We are gonna discuss the difference between them in a little bit, or you can access symmetry from your tool settings. So let's go to our move tool. And from here you can get access to your symmetry settings. So you can go to your symmetry tab and turn off the symmetry from here. Right now I'm going to use the button at the top. So let's turn on the symmetry in world X, because right now we are in the XY axis. So let's turn the world X axis on. Let's select our object and let's go into the edge mode. Now when the world X symmetry is on, you can see that the exact opposite side of our selection is also highlighted. Now this comes in really handy if you're working on an object that's gonna have the same details on both sides of the object. So this is how you can work with your world symmetry. But there was another option up there called the object symmetry. Now the difference between world symmetry and object symmetry is that if you're working with world symmetry, your object needs to be perfectly centered in your scene. Right now our sphere is perfectly centered, so if we push it off center and go back to our edge mode, you can see that the symmetry is now not working. It is on, but it is not effective. The reason for that is it's calculating the distance of every polygon from the center of the world. For example, if our mouse is 2 units away from the center, it is going to expect another polygon that is -2 units away from the center on the other side. But since our object is off center, the symmetry is not going to work. So let's turn on the object symmetry. Let's go to the object X and go to our component mode again. Now as you can see, when we switch from world symmetry to object symmetry, our symmetry is working again. Because in the object symmetry is gonna calculate the center pivot of the object as the dividing line. And everything on one side of the object should match the other side. Now before you activate world symmetry or object symmetry, your object should be the same on both sides of the dividing line, whether it be the world dividing line or the object dividing line. If your polygons are not the same on both sides, the symmetry is not going to work. So let's undo all of our changes. Now that we have discussed the symmetry, let's talk about the soft selection. Now you can activate soft selection by pressing the B key on your keyboard. Let's go back into our component mode. Let's choose the vertex mode. And as you can see, I can switch the soft selection mode on or off by clicking on the B key on my keyboard. You can also adjust the radius of your soft selection brush by holding down your B key and left clicking on your mouse and dragging left to right. This will increase or decrease the radius of your soft selection. Now you can also go back to your tool settings and change the settings of your soft selection from here. You can choose your fall off. You can create your own fall off, or you can select from the presets down here. Now as you change the fall off preset, the behavior of the soft selection will also change. As our default soft selection gave us smooth deformation, if we choose a different one, you can see that the deformation changes with the fall off profile that you have selected. So you can create a bunch of different shapes by customizing your fall off profile. So let's close that and let's undo all of this. And I hope now you know a little bit more about how to select the different components of an object, how to work in symmetry, and how to use soft selection. And as always, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, drop a comment. And if you want to support me directly, the link to my merch store and my Patreon is in the description down below. And I'll see you in the next video.